And she says, you have said the toponyms Etham and Pithom refer to the same place. Yes, I do. What are the reasons for thinking that they are the same place, and why was the writer of Exodus inconsistent with the name used? Okay, we'll get to that. Specifically, I'm thinking of your contribution to Behind the Scenes of the Old Testament. Footnote 7. Hoffmeyer has disagreed with this idea. Yes, he has. And there's a reason he has. Israel in Egypt, page 182. Ancient Israel in Sinai, page 69. Does he have valid reasons for rejecting this connection? Okay. I think what Jim has done, and I was trained by Jim, James Hoffmeyer. I love him. He's a great friend. I really appreciate his mentorship over the years. I think what's happened here is that he is in many ways responding to Manfred Gorg and others like William Propp, who have basically said that Etham and Pithom are the same place, but they're adding a little more to this. They're basically saying that Etham is the later version. Early versions of Pithom were spelled with the P, and then the P was dropped to produce Etham, and this is evidence of, say, multiple redactors in, say, the Pentateuch. And that's what Gorg and Propp are going to hold. So, this is where I think Jim sort of, and when you see James's rebuttals to this idea, he's more concerned about the implications that Gorg is placing on this change being a late addition, basically proof of redaction criticism. So I think that's really his concern here, is that the idea that you have Pithom, it drops the P in, I'll say, later Iron Age context to become Etham. Thus, it shows that the Pentateuch was written over, centuries, periods of time. Okay, now, here's, I think, the problem with this. I think, in some respects, Hoffmeyer has thrown out the baby with the bathwater. I don't think you really need to do this. I think it is perfectly acceptable to say that Pithom and Etham are basically the same place. They're very similar in the itineraries. We don't find a separate Etham in, say, Egyptian literature. And Hoffmeyer already recognizes that the Egyptians dropped the P off of place names in Dynasty 19. For example, with Papyrus Anastasi III, we find both P. Ramses and Ramses used of the same place, which is Tel el-Kantir. So, Hoffmeyer already recognizes that this happens, and it's not an indicator of, say, later authorship. So, to say that Etham is a later construction of Pithom is basically to sort of ignore that the P dropping off of the Pithom is not evidence of later authorship, because we find that sort of thing done in Dynasty 19, and we even find it done in the same text. So I think even Hoffmeyer's sort of rejoinder that the later, that they can get it right in, say, Pithom, but they can't get it right later in Etham, I think it's wrong-headed. I think it's wrong-headed. I think both forms are right. They're both right. And they're both circa Dynasty 19. And we even, as I said, even in, say, singular documents, like we find in Papyrus Anastasi III, both forms of a place with a P and without a P are used. It just seems to be the writing convention of that late Bronze Age period where the P wasn't necessary. You could use it if you wanted to. You didn't have to use it if you didn't want to. That just seems to be pretty much what it is. There's no essentially compelling reason to include the P other than to be formal. It's basically you're using the P as a formal name, and then you drop the P when you want to use it informally. Like, for example, in Papyrus Anastasia 3, our first sort of encounter with P. Ramses is P. Usur Ma'a Re Setep and Re Ramzi Mary Amun. It uses the whole titulary of Ramses II. And then it just goes, City Ramses. Just truncates it to really something very short and informal. So, I mean, Gorg's proposal just can't stand up to the data. So I think Hoffmeyer's just going a step too far. He doesn't need to go this far.